And for more on the melting of permafrost and how this affects the planet, I'm joined by Jennifer Turner. She's director of the China Environment Forum at the Woodrow Wilson Center here in Washington. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Sean mentioned, permafrost. The name itself implies the ground is supposed to be permanently frozen. What does it say about the fact that it's melting? What does it say about our global climate?
Permafrost risk, right? It's not, it is melting, and I mean, it's thawing. And I mean, it used to be in many places like the Arctic and even in Tibet, where there'd be just kind of a natural thawing and freezing. But you know that like glaciers, we see the pictures of these dramatic pictures of glaciers melting away and the snowpack departing. Permafrost, it's not quite as visual. It's underground, but there are, and it's not well studied. I mean, here in the video that we just saw, it is being well studied up in the Arctic, but in some of the third poles, like in Himalaya, Tibetan region, there's not a lot of understanding of exactly what is happening to the permafrost. I mean, there's anecdotes. I mean, we see examples of, again, roads falling, big questions. I think the Chinese Meteorological Administration, their head recently said that maybe the Tibetan Railroad is in jeopardy because of permafrost melting. And so there's a lot of unknown question marks, particularly because when you think about how in India and China, how they're building more hydropower dams further and further up into the Himalayan mountains.
So what does this mean? I mean, how big of a concern is this?
Well, we should be really concerned because we've had already examples in India. There have been a number of dams a couple of years ago because of the glacial lake bursting that knocked out about 3 dams. We don't know, 30 to 60,000 people died, villages wiped out. But the fact that these countries, they keep building the hydropower, and hydropower is a big part of China's solution to coal.
What about the gases that are trapped in the permafrost? As Sean mentioned, now they're coming into the atmosphere. It's sort of a global warming that you don't think about. It's not factory generated, it's not heat, it's something that's coming from within the earth.
Right, well, this is the domino effect, right? Humans have produced a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere, and it's melting the glaciers, thawing the permafrost, and scientists don't know exactly how much methane is captured there, but it's a lot, tons and tons and tons and tons, and it's just it could really kind of accelerate the thawing and the melting of the glaciers, and the fact that you will see increased flooding. I mean, I focus a lot on China and Asia, and already knowing that the Tibetan water tower, where all the hydropower, all the melting, all the thawing of the permafrost, that it's a very vulnerable region, and there's a lot of people who live there, and these are also countries that don't tend to talk to each other and work together: Pakistan, India, China. And so the question is that, okay, climate change is happening, but are we set? Are we ready to adapt, to work together to kind of deal with the challenges?
Well, that being said, as we know, the climate change talks are happening in Paris. Are there some concrete actions that leaders can take in the next week or two that can impact what we're seeing in the Arctic and some of these other places? And with permafrost, what do you hope to see out of this?
Well, I mean, already a lot of the nations have come, a majority have come with commitments in hand. And many experts are saying, well, even if all the countries did the commitments that they have in hand, that they're bringing to Paris, it wouldn't be enough. But what's exciting, though, is that compared to Copenhagen, where nothing came out of that, you have countries that are now saying we have commitments and more opening to how we're going to verify. And that's a much better starting point to having the countries really, across the globe, start really lowering CO2 emissions. I mean, that's really what it boils down to.
So will we see an agreement out of this?
A lot of people that I talk to, it's a happier time among the climate experts. They really think there is going to be an agreement. I mean, someone's always going to grouse in the end, but the fact that you are seeing such unity, particularly, we must say, the US and China, last year, their climate agreement committed both of them. Our two countries, US and China, we were the biggest excuses for the other players not to act. And now even India's has been kind of pushed further and faster than they really wanted to in terms of making more concrete commitments.
All right, we'll have to see how that goes.
See what happens.
Jennifer Turner, on a positive note, thank you so much.
Thank you.